I am Dr. Solomon Waneri, a lecturer in the Department of Biomedical Engineering, University of Lagos, Nigeria. I'm the lecturer for this course, Medical Instrumentation 1. In this course, we will discuss a number of topics for this semester. Here is the course outline. For today's lecture, the topic is Basic Medical Instrumentation System. The lesson objectives are to describe a basic medical instrumentation system, review the challenges of medical measurement of living human beings, explain the functional components of a basic instrumentation system. What is biomedical instrumentation? Biomedical instrumentation is the application of knowledge and technologies to solve problems related to living biological systems. So biomedical instrumentation helps us to be able to do a number of things on living biological systems to be able to ascertain their state of health. This involves diagnosis, treatment, and prevention of diseases in humans. The primary purpose of medical instrumentation is to measure or determine the presence of some physical quantity. And this may help the physician to be able to make better diagnostic and therapeutic decisions. It's very, very important. Without medical instrumentation system, it will be absolutely difficult for clinicians to be able to diagnose the condition of their patients. So as this field is emerging, the area of biomedical engineering field is expanding. Medical instrumentation is a critical component of biomedical engineering. It's a major aspect of biomedical engineering because biomedical engineering aims to solve medical problems by applying engineering solutions. Instrumentation is an important aspect. What are the challenges of medical measurements of living human beings? It's very, very important that we find out the major challenges of taking medical measurements on living human beings. These measurements are usually different from taking measurements in inanimate objects. For instance, if you want to take the measurement of the length of a specific item, the length is always the length. It does not change. But not so with the measurement of biomedical biological systems like living human beings. So it's important that we look at some of the challenges that affect medical measurement of living human beings. And one of those challenges is the non-deterministic nature of measurements. Most biological signals are non-deterministic in nature. They are usually non-deterministic in nature. As such, it is very, very difficult to have a stable value while taking the measurement. So for instance, you might take a person's blood pressure and it gives you 130 millimeter of mercury over 80 millimeter of mercury. You might decide to use the same instrument to measure the blood pressure. You realize that it may not give you exactly what it gave you previously because blood pressure is usually not stable. it varies with time. It varies with time. So, and the same way it is with some other measurements in living human beings. Many of those other measurements are non-deterministic because they change with time. Sometimes the values could be random. So this is a major challenge. Another important challenge is the presence of artifacts. Artifacts are usually unwanted interferences that affect the accuracy of the readings taken from persons. Usually artifacts affect the quality of signals, and it makes it difficult to get accurate values while taking measurements. The presence of artifacts can distort the value that is being measured such that the wrong results are gotten. So that is a major challenge while taking measurements in living human beings. Artifacts play a role that may not be too desirable while taking measurements. The third is legal and ethical implications. Ethical considerations are necessary in measurement of biosignals to ensure patient is not exposed to severe harm, because some form of measurements could expose patients to severe harm. So, and those form of measurements can lead to several legal challenges. To avoid such challenges, it's important that we adhere to ethical principles while assessing your patients or while taking biological measurements from living human beings. So it's important that we adhere to ethical standards, particularly in research. Before you undertake any research in human beings or animals, ethical approval is compulsory. Ethical approval is compulsory. And while taking such measurements during research, it's important that you get informed consent. The person that is being measured should be able to give his informed consent. That will aid you against any kind of issues that may arise in the future. Then next is patient safety concerns and discomfort. It's a major challenge. Certain measurements, particularly the invasive measurement of biosignals, may be unsafe or cause some discomfort or pain. Yes, certain measurements, especially when you want to do invasive measurements that require some form of procedure or surgery, it might cause a lot of discomfort to the patient. For instance, you want to use pacemaker, it may cause discomfort because it's an invasive procedure. Medical instrumentation systems should be designed in such a way as not to cause harm to the person being measured as well as the user. That is very, very important. Safety is important in healthcare. Also in engineering, safety is very important. So another major challenge is non-accessibility of specific regions of interest. When taking certain measurements, sometimes it's difficult to have direct access to the specific region of the body that you are trying to measure. In such situations, measurements based on the relationship between certain scientific relationships are used to establish those values, which may usually not be very accurate. Let's look at basic components of biomedical instruments. The major components of biomedical instruments are Measurand, Transducer, stroke sensor, signal conditioner, and display system. Here is the block diagram of a medical instrumentation system. The block diagram of a medical instrumentation system is shown in Fig 1.1. As you can see in this figure, the measurand is the first block. This is the measurand. Usually, the measurand is the physical quantity that you are trying to measure, and this physical quantity is in the human body. The device you are trying to use to measure this physical quantity usually has a sensor or a transducer, which detects the measurand and converts the value into an electrical quantity or signal, because the medical instrumentation system will not be able to process a physical quantity which has not been converted to an electrical signal. So once that conversion is done, it goes to the signal conditioner. The purpose of the signal conditioner is to be able to prepare the signal for signal processing, because usually biological signals have a number of challenges. Some of them include the very low value of the biological signal, which are usually very low and weak. Then you have artifacts and noise that affect the quality of the signal. So during signal conditioning, artifacts and noise are minimized, while the true signal is filtered. Then the signal is amplified and sent to the signal processing unit, which is usually a microprocessor or microcontroller. The microprocessor or microcontroller interprets the value that has been collected from the measurand. It's the microprocessor that interprets what the actual value is before sending it to the display unit or output. Usually, you can see in this block diagram, there's a control system that automatically controls everything. Then let's look at the measurand. The measurand is a physical quantity that is intended to be measured by an instrumentation system. The measurand is a physical quantity that is intended to be measured by an instrumentation system. Usually, the human body generates biosignals and acts as the source of measurand. The measurand is obtained from the human body. A medical instrumentation system can measure the measurand directly from the human body. Typical examples of measurand measured by a medical instrumentation system include body temperature, blood pressure, heart rate, oxygen saturation, and so many others. Then let's look at the sensor or stroke transducer. The transducer converts one form of energy to another form, usually electrical energy. So the transducer converts that physical quantity into electrical energy so that the system can process it. Usually in an ultrasound machine, we have piezoelectric signals, which usually converts mechanical vibrations into electrical signal. So transducers produce a usable output depending on the measurement. That is what the transducer does. It does the conversion and produces a usable output that can be processed to give you the accurate value that was measured. The sensor is used to sense the signal from the source. Yes, the sensor helps us to be able to sense or detect the value of the signal from the source. Then we have what we call actuators. An actuator is a component of a machine that produces force torque, or displacement. So usually, actuators convert the electrical signal into motion or usually applied force. Linear actuators are used in many medical devices. We have electric linear actuators, which use voltage and current to produce a kind of rotating force, usually in an electric motor. Then we have other medical applications of linear actuators. The first is it's used in electric beds, in hospital beds. Actuators make it possible to easily adjust the bed and reposition it at different angles for sitting and sleeping. So it is because we have actuators. That is what will be able to lead to that adjustment that takes place. Then actuators can be helpful while taking X-ray exam in the doctor's clinic. Usually, linear actuators are often used in doctors' offices because it helps to move patients to their proper position. The right adjustments can be done. Then also in surgical theaters, linear actuators can be used in surgical theaters to control straight line motion of surgery tables and positioning equipment. So they can be used to adjust surgery tables. Linear actuators can actually do that. Then we have signal conditioners. A signal conditioner is a device that converts one type of electrical signal into another type of signal. It usually converts a signal that may be difficult to read by conventional instrumentation system into a more readable format. That is the work of a signal conditioner, because the raw signals, biological signals that are gotten from the measurand are usually characterized by artifacts, noise, and usually very low, and usually in an unreadable format. So it takes a signal conditioner to prepare this signal and make it possible for a signal processing system to understand the content of the signal. Usually, signal conditioning involves a number of functions. The functions include amplification, filtering, linearization, and electrical isolation. Then we have filtering. Let's explain what filtering is. Usually, as I said earlier on, biological signals contain unwanted signals, which we call noise, which can affect the accuracy of results. In order to reduce or minimize noise in a signal that we have measured, we need filters, electronic filters, to filter out the unwanted signal, which is usually noise or artifacts. Electronic filters could be analog filters or digital filters, depending on the specific design. They could be low-pass filters, high-pass filters. It just depends on the specific design of the system. So electronic filters are often used to eliminate noise and unwanted signal. Then also in signal conditioning, we have what we call amplification. Amplification is very, very important. Why must we amplify a signal? Biological signals are very weak and should be amplified. Without amplifiers, it may be difficult for the processing system to be able to interpret and give us the accurate reading of the instrument. So it's important that the signal is amplified. Biological signals are very weak. Usually the voltages are very, very low. in the range of microvolts and very low millivolts. So good amplification systems can amplify the signals for easy interpretation. Signal filtering amplification affects the signal to noise ratio. It's very, very important. If you have a system and the ratio of signal to noise is very low, what will happen is that the noise will cloud out the system and the processor may not give you the accurate reading that you are trying to measure. In order to avoid such situations, the signal must be filtered. After filtering, the pure signal has to be amplified. Then we have signal isolation. Signal isolation is very, very important to prevent leakage of current, because it is possible for current leakage to lead to the electrocution of the patient or user of the device. To avoid such situations, there is need for signal isolation. And most often, isolation amplifiers are used in medical instruments to ensure isolation of a patient from power supply leakage currents. The output is produced in visual or audio form. Yes, when a signal has been processed from the detection of the measurand by the sensor stroke transducer, and the signal is signal conditioned by the signal conditioning unit, which involves filtering, amplification, signal isolation, and even linearization. After signal conditioning, the signal moves to the microprocessor, which processes the signal. Then finally, the microprocessor interprets the value that was read by the system, and the result is displayed in a display unit. So usually, visual display is often used, and the most common visual displays are your LCD, that is your liquid crystal display, and also your CRT monitors. Also, we may also use charts of a recorder or in numerical form. For example, in ECG, charts are often, and the results are usually printed in tracings. And results may also be passed on to an alarm. Yes, if there is a situation that needs urgent attention, the alarm will be triggered to notify people around that there is need to attend to the patient. And results can also be stored in a storage unit. So you can consult these materials for further information. Thank you for listening.